Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel where watches meet design history. Today we're diving into one of my favourite rabbit holes, digital designs of the 1980s and 1990s, looking at what Casio and Seiko were doing when the future seemed to arrive all at once, in a beeping, blinking rectangle strapped on your wrist. This was the golden age of chunky plastic LCD screens that glowed like tiny alien spacecraft, buttons you could barely press with human fingers, and watches that genuinely believed they could replace your computer. We're talking calculators on your wrist, databanks, TV tuners. Yes, actual television on your arm, because apparently that's what humanity needed at the time. But digital watches didn't just pop out of nowhere. They were shaped by everything that happened around them. Industrial design, early computer aesthetics, synthesizers, arcade culture, and films that convinced us the future would be 90% neon and 10% existential dread. Today we're unpacking how all of that merged into watches we still geek out over. Stick around to the end. I've got 3 modern watches that carry this era's DNA, from I can actually afford this to I should probably call my financial advisor. To understand these watches, you need to picture the vibe back then. It was an era of rapid change, both culturally, from punk to Britpop via the New Romantics, and technologically. Home computers were finally invading living rooms like friendly plastic aliens. Kids were walking around with Walkmans, ignoring their parents with unprecedented efficiency. Arcade games were eating coins faster than anyone could produce them. And sci-fi movies kept telling us the future was neon-soaked, grid-lined, and scored entirely by synths that sounded vaguely threatening. Everything was becoming digital, portable, programmable, miniaturized. If a gadget had buttons and a tiny screen, people wanted it, even if nobody could actually explain what it did or why you needed it. It's digital. That was enough somehow. Anyway, into this gadget-obsessed tech-drunk world stepped the watch companies, ready to strap the future directly to your wrist. Casio absolutely got it. They understood that a digital watch didn't just tell the time, it could be a miniature control panel for your imagination. So they made watches that stored phone numbers, beeped in 12 emotionally distinct tones from polite reminder to minor emergency, counted down, calculated square roots, and yes, allegedly helped with entire generation cheat on maths tests. Not that I know anything about that. Their design language was playful and approachable, squared-off cases, bright resin straps, colour-coded buttons that practically begged to be pressed. They looked like something a video game character would wear. Or, let's be honest, something you wished you were cool enough to pull off in school. Casio was affordable, which meant millions of kids got their first taste of owning technology through one of these things. They democratized the digital future. And in doing so, they made the entire Swiss mechanical watch industry look like your dad's dress shoes. Respectable, well made, probably expensive, but not exactly thrilling at break time. Seiko took a different approach. While Casio was busy making childhood magical, Seiko was out there trying to build the future. This is the company that created the first TV watch. Because apparently watching television on a 1-inch screen while awkwardly holding your wrist up to your face was the innovation we all needed. They built early smartwatch prototypes, voice memo recorders, databank watches that could store dozens of phone numbers, which felt like sorcery at the time, and even a wrist-mounted computer called the UC2000 that came with its own fold-out keyboard. Wearing one made you look like you were about to hack into a government database while casually waiting for the bus. Seiko's designs were more angular, more metallic, more I probably have security clearance, less Fisher-Price, more Blade Runner. Both companies defined the era, just in wildly different ways. Casio made you feel cool. Seiko made you feel like a cyborg. But of course, digital watches weren't happening in isolation. There were many more consumer objects going through the same transformation. Think about the gadgets of that era. Answering machines, Walkmans, early PCs, the Game Boy. They all spoke the same visual language. Sharp edges, compact forms, an abundance of buttons, some of which definitely didn't need to exist. And that optimistic grey and black colour scheme that screamed, I am a serious machine from the future. Graphic design was equally infected. Everything had neon grid lines, pixelated fonts, and backgrounds that looked like someone graphed them in an algebra class. Even the packaging for watches leaned into the computer age aesthetic. It all contributed to this overwhelming sense that the digital world was materializing around us, and your wristwatch was part of that revolution. Pop culture poured gasoline on the fire. Movies like Tron, War Games, Back to the Future and Blade Runner didn't just predict the future, they made it irresistible. When you saw Marty McFly looking at a Casio with a world time function, of course you wanted one. It was the closest most of us would ever get to time travel. And behind all this was Japan's economic boom, which meant companies like Casio and Seiko had the money and the ambition to innovate like their national pride depended on it. These weren't quirky experiments, they were flexes. Look what we can cram into a watch. Your move, Switzerland. Even now, decades later, the influence of the 80s and 90s digital design is everywhere. Modern digital watches still follow the same core principles. Clear LCD displays, logical interfaces, tough resin or plastic cases, and a commitment to doing way more than just telling the time. Even traditional mechanical brands occasionally revisit this era. You'll see digital style jumping hour complications, retro LCD reissues, and a growing appreciation for the bold, unapologetically nerdy aesthetic of those decades. Sure, some of it's nostalgia, but also respect. This was the era when watches embraced technology instead of pretending it didn't exist. And in doing so, they fundamentally changed what a watch could be. All right then, let's talk about some modern watches that capture the spirit of the digital 80s and 90s. In the affordable category, of course, there's the Casio F91W, it's a classic. But I'm going for the Casio AE1200, the Casio Royale. This thing is pure retro magic. World time across multiple zones, a display layout straight out of a spy thriller, and a case design that looks like it was issued to secret agents during the Cold War. It's fun, surprisingly capable, and costs about as much as lunch. Possibly the best value per nostalgia ratio in all of horology. Then for the mid-range, many of you are probably expecting me to go G-Shock here, and I easily could, but well, variety is the spice of life, so I'm going with the Seiko Prospect Digital. These models take the seriousness of Seiko's old school digital tech and wrap it in something rugged and contemporary. Solar powered, supremely legible, and rocking that I could hack into a satellite if I needed to, but I'm choosing not to, energy. It's the grown-up version of the Seiko digital watches you wanted as a kid. Now for high horology, we'll look at the A. Lange & Zorn Zeitwerk. Now, I'm cheating a bit here. This isn't technically a digital watch, but it kind of feels like one. No, really. Those jumping digital numerals capture the essence of digital timekeeping, but executed through some of the finest mechanical engineering on Earth. It's what happens when you take the idea of digital and translate it into high horology. Basically, it's for people who love their Casio calculator watch, but now have a mortgage. And that's the story of digital design in the 80s and 90s. A moment when watches weren't just keeping time, they were racing to keep up with a technological revolution. If you had a digital watch growing up, or if one is still lurking in a drawer somewhere, possibly still beeping, let me know in the comments. I genuinely love to hear those stories. In the next episode, we're diving into minimalism and the return of restraint era. The design swing from maximalist digital futurism back to clean lines, quiet aesthetics, and watches that stop trying to run your entire schedule for you. If you enjoyed this, click like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.